Good morning. Hi. We'll continue today with the Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon. The next section reads like this. Buddhas and ancestors of old are as we. We in the future shall be Buddhas and ancestors. Revering Buddhas and ancestors, we are one Buddha and one ancestor. Awakening Bodhi Mind, we are one Bodhi Mind. Because they extend their compassion to us freely and without limit, we are able to attain Buddhahood and let go of the attainment. Therefore, the Chan master Lungya said, those who in past lives were not enlightened will now be enlightened. In this life, save the body, which is the fruit of many lives. Before Buddhas were enlightened, they were the same as we. Enlightened people of today are exactly as those of old. Kind of challenging, isn't it? Buddhas and ancestors of old were as we. We in the future shall be Buddhas and ancestors. Us? Me? With my busy mind and my tired back and my aching knees? This question is a kind of cynical doubt. It's the doubt that says, I'm asking a question, but really what I'm saying is, no way, can't be. Cynical doubt says, I know how it is. How it is I'm not like the Buddhas and ancestors. Not possible. But Dogen, in this piece, this is Dogen's faith. Dogen is asking us too to have faith. And if we don't have faith, then we can ride his. An alternative to cynical doubt isn't hubris. I'm a Buddha, I'm an ancestor. The opposite of cynical doubt is what we would call don't know mind, beginner's mind. I was walking down on the way to the hall this morning, and there's that giant picture of Bodhidharma, the guy with the big bulgy eyes. Bodhidharma is our ancestor. Sorry. Bodhidharma is our ancestor who brought the teachings from India to China. It's said that he, the reason for those bulgy eyes is that he didn't want to fall asleep during meditation. And so he cut off his eyelids. I'm not recommending you do that. In fact, he did that. The legend says that his eyelids fell to the ground and became green tea. So ever since, you don't have to cut off your eyelids to stay awake. You can just have a nice cup of tea. So we thank Bodhidharma for that. Bodhidharma is perhaps most well known for his don't know. When he was asked, what are the highest teachings of the holy truths, something like that. When he said, when he was challenged, what's the essence of the teaching and who are you? He said, don't know. And that don't know mind has echoed down for centuries. And it is an invitation for all of us. Not don't know as ignorance. This isn't the don't know of ignoring, of not paying attention. This is the don't know of intimacy. It's the willingness to release our pre-existing views and opinions and ideas about who we are, about who other people are, about how the world is, about who the Buddhas and ancestors were. It's an open invitation. Come in, come close. This is what we practice when we sit together hour after hour with our achy knees and backs and minds and hearts. We are invited to come close, to drop under the mind that, have you noticed, it always has an opinion about something. When we drop below, we don't have to get rid of it. We don't have to shoot our thoughts, right? But when we drop in, we discover something in that not knowing that is mysterious and alive. We say, even the 10,000 sages don't know. When it says, awakening Bodhi Mind, we are one Bodhi Mind. What is that Bodhi Mind? That mind that transcends past and future. The mind that's always here, like the body, now. Even the 10,000 sages don't know. And if we think we know something, we get into a little bit of trouble. There's a story I like very much. Ostensibly, it is a story about our ancestor Deshan. And Deshan was a scholar of the Diamond Sutra. Remember the Diamond Sutra? That was, Huineng heard that line from the Diamond Sutra. It said, a bodhisattva should arouse a mind that abides nowhere. And that line sent him off to practice and ultimately to become our sixth ancestor. So Deshan also was a scholar of this Diamond Sutra, of these Prajna Paramita teachings on emptiness. He heard that there were these Chan teachers who were pointing directly to the nature of mind, Bodhi Mind. And he got a little bee in his bonnet, and he thought, I am a great scholar, and I'm going to go challenge these Chan masters to a debate. And so he set off with all of his, a copy of the Diamond Sutra and all of his commentaries that he had spent his whole life writing about the Diamond Sutra. And he set off to go challenge the Chan, the Zen masters, to-be Zen masters. And then he ran into one of our unnamed, less known women ancestors. The old lady at the tea shack selling rice cakes. And before he got to the temple, he approached her little hut, and she asked him, what is that you're carrying on your back? And he said, this is the Diamond Sutra and my commentaries. It's my whole life's work. And she said, And she said, I heard that it said in the Diamond Sutra, past mind cannot be got at. Present mind cannot be got at. Future mind cannot be got at. And Deshan said, yes, this is the mind that I am an expert in. He had a little bit of hubris. So she said, well, if you're the expert, if you can answer my question, I'll give you a tea cake, some tea and rice cakes. And if you can't, I'm not giving you anything. So she said, past mind cannot be got at. Present mind cannot be got at. Future mind cannot be got at. Tell me, which mind is this? And poor Deshan, with his backpack full of scholarly text, was dumbfounded. And he didn't get any snacks. So she said, you should go there to the temple and meet with these teachers. She was humble. Of course, she was herself a teacher. But as is often the case in these stories, we don't know her name. But her words, like Bodhidharma's, also have echoed down through the ages. Insight comes in very unexpected ways. We are sitting, paying attention over here, and something comes in, like this tea lady, and has us wake up. We see that we didn't understand something. This is the willingness to be in don't know mind, the willingness to be intimate with our experience, to allow it to inform us. Our mind is so busy categorizing and opinionating and assessing and judging. What happens if we see that mind for what it is, but we instead allow our experience to come inside? We allow our experience, moment by moment, not so much the experience of our thought, but the experience of our intimate, visceral, felt moment to moment. If we can hold a don't know mind, we have the opportunity to be surprised. As we sit, hour after hour, period after period, sitting and walking and eating and napping and doing work practice, that rigidity of our linear mind begins to soften. It can't quite hold in the same way. The thoughts may still be there, but for me, the experience is often like they may still be loud, but they're down a long hallway. Increasingly, there's more and more space, and in that space, we begin to soften. In the Theravada system, Theravada Buddhism, the initial experience of awakening is called entering the stream. I think of it actually more accurately as saying becoming the stream. As we sit, we begin to become aware of the fluidity, the aliveness of our experience. Even if the mind wants to chop everything up into ideas and opinions and this moment or that moment or good or bad, we begin to have a different experience of time. In Greek, there are two kinds of time called chronos and kairos. And chronos is like chronological. I think of it as tick-tock time. It's the time that is marked on the clock or the calendar. And it's important. If I went talking till noon, you wouldn't be that happy about it. So tick-tock time is important. It helps us navigate, right? But we can also, as we sit, begin to get an experience of what's called kairos, deep time. And you may have had an experience of this as you've been sitting. I did yesterday during that third period of zazen in the afternoon. Right? So sometimes you sit down and time, same amount of time on the clock, the bell rings and what just happened. And sometimes it's interminable. Ring, 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 ring. Sometimes time feels so slow, right? This is the experience of time, not clock time, body time, experiential time, intimate with time. So again, the mind that categorizes and organizes and judges the time that marks on the clock, these are useful. But they're not all that there is. And we have this invitation to taste for ourselves something different, even just a whiff. One of my favorite descriptions of this is the opening lines of a novel by the Nigerian author Ben Okri. It's called The Famished Road. I've carried these opening lines with me for decades. He says, "In the beginning, there was a river. And the river was paved over and became a road. And soon the road spread out and covered everything. But because the road was really a river, it was always hungry." The thinking mind is like a road. It's useful. It helps us get places. It helps us get places without bumping into one another. But if all we have is the road, and we forget our depths, we forget that we have river nature, that there's something just under the surface of all of that commentary that is fluid, alive. This is Bodhi Mind. So, how do we discover this one Bodhi Mind? In these paragraphs, Dogen gives us some pointers. some of his language is helpful in orienting us to how to discover, drop down that whole world that exists beneath the surface of my ideas and opinions and beliefs about who I am and how things should be. That is a living world. So the first thing that Dogen says, well, actually Chan Master Lung Ya says, is in this life, save the body, which is the fruit of many lives. So the body is a doorway for us. We want to take care of the body because unlike the mind and unlike the spin of heart-mind, of thoughts and emotions, the body is always here. Always in the moment. So in any moment, you can return, you can find refuge here by coming back to the simplicity of the body sitting, the body breathing. And he says this body is precious. It is the fruit of many lives. There's an old story that says that taking a human rebirth is very rare. And the legend goes that there is an old blind turtle who lives at the bottom of the ocean. And it only comes up for air once every 100 years. And the likelihood of that blind turtle coming up and getting a breath of air and sticking its head through a piece of driftwood that has a hole in it, that's how likely it is to be born as a human, in a human body. I had a lot of trouble with this one. Because for me, my body was a battle. I came in absolutely feeling broken, sure that because I lived with an illness, no way was I like the Buddhas and ancestors, and I just wanted to be fixed. I thought, all the other things I've tried haven't worked, I'll try meditation. And guess what? It didn't work, and it also did. It didn't take the illness away. It didn't take the difficulty for me of living in this body away. But it changed my relationship to it. And that's what's possible. And this points to the second thing that Dogen invites us to. And this is an attitude of reverence. He says, revering Buddhas and ancestor, we are one Buddha and one ancestor. This is a hint. How do we enter the realm of one Buddha and one ancestor? Reverence. What does it mean to revere? I don't think revering means so much holding the Buddhas and ancestors up here as something unattainable for us. I think of reverence more like a combination of humility and gratitude. I always say in my own experience that when I feel gratitude, I'm definitely in the neighborhood of awakening. Because gratitude isn't gratitude for this or that. Gratitude is gratitude that there's anything at all. It has a feeling of amazement in it. Most of the time, we sit with an opinion. I like this, I don't like that. I wish this moment were just a little bit different. I wish this body was just a little bit different. I wish they'd ring the bell. I wish they wouldn't ring the bell. Gratitude says, thank you. Whether we like it or we don't. So we enter through the body and we take an attitude of gratitude. We take an attitude of humility, of not knowing, of being willing to see and see through all of our views and opinions. Some of them we don't even know we had, right? Those are the most interesting ones. Some views and opinions were pretty clear. This is what I think. But some of them we don't find out until we're sitting and then we realize, oh, I didn't know that I was supposed to something. I said this to Shinmu just before. I said, but isn't this green part of the robe supposed to cover the sleeve? And they said, no. I was like, oh, see? I'm just making things up in my mind, making things much more difficult for myself, as if it weren't hard enough to wrestle this dragon, this green, slippery robe. Right? We do this all the time. We make stuff up we don't even know that we're making up. But as we sit with ourselves in this intimate way, we have an opportunity to bump up against, to see clearly views and opinions that we might not have known we were carrying. And the last piece, maybe shouldn't be a surprise by now, but I keep being surprised every time I read this text. The third thing that Dogen points to is compassion. There it is again. I find myself a little bit dumbfounded. I've been reading Dogen for decades, and I find him gorgeous and brilliant and perplexing, and what's in his statement of faith? Over and over, he talks about compassion. Because they extend their compassion to us freely and without limit, we are able to attain Buddhahood and let go of the attainment. Maybe it shouldn't be such a surprise. There's a story about Dogen and his disciple, Tetsu Gikai. We chanted his name this morning in service. And the next time you chant this, you'll notice there is a name in between Dogen and Tetsu Gikai. Tetsu Gikai was his most intimate disciple. But Dogen didn't pass on the robe and bowl. He didn't transmit to him. He said to Tetsu Gikai, a little bit like the tea lady said to Deshan, you have full intellectual understanding of the teachings, but I can't make you my disciple because you need to cultivate what he called robaishin, grandmotherly mind. You need to develop this mind of compassion. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was my great champion when I was a child. And she had these incredibly soft hands, all wrinkly. And when she would come to visit, she would pinch my cheek and say, "Nu bubala." And then she would look right at me and say, "Tell me everything." So this is the attitude that we can engage with our moment-to-moment experience. Can we meet our moments with those soft hands, with that inquiring gaze? I myself kind of relate to Deshan and Tetsu Gikai. I remember years ago, after chanting the Heart Sutra as we do. The Heart Sutra, as you know, is a short chanting version of the Prajnaparamita texts. So the Diamond Sutra that we've been talking about is from the same literature. It's an abbreviated version, chanting version. So I had for some years been chanting the Heart Sutra. And like Tetsu, like Deshan, I was really focused on emptiness. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply, perceived that all 5 skandhas, what make up I, me, and mine, all 5 skandhas are empty and thus relieved all suffering. So I came in with a lot of suffering, and I thought, if I just understand the emptiness of the 5 skandhas, my suffering, poof, gone. Then one morning, we were chanting the Heart Sutra, and I felt like the words on the page sort of did a somersault. And I heard the very same words completely differently. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing, perceived that all 5 skandhas are empty and thus relieved all suffering. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, compassion. What is it that wakes up? It's Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. It is compassion that wakes up. And I remember the moment that I heard in that way, and I thought, oh, all this time I've been looking over here. What I needed was right here all along. As we practice in the body with an attitude of humility and gratitude, as we learn to meet our experience with these soft hands, with this genuine curiosity and willingness to listen, we have an opportunity to discover something we might not have known before. And it's not really that there's something new. It's that we see what's here with new eyes. It's all been here all along. Our practice is a practice to help us see for ourselves. Because when you know for yourself, then it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You know what's true. This is refuge, and this is faith. The deepening of faith happens. We may come in and say, no way, I'm not a Buddha, an ancestor. But I don't know, Dogen seems to be saying that, okay, right? And then we sit and we cook and we stew and we marinate and we wish they would ring the bell and we mess up the full moon ceremony in the loudest possible voice. And we recover because there's another moment and there's another moment. Mm-hmm. And as we get close, as we bring this don't know mind, as the kind of crusty, cynical mind begins to soften, and we touch that aliveness that's here, we have an opportunity to be surprised, to discover something unexpected. So I will leave you with a poem, again from one of the early Buddhist nuns, Dhammadina. She was also a very well-known bhikkhuni. She had many, many disciples. And like the poem I read the other day from Mahapajapati, this is Dhammadina's song of awakening, her way of describing what she understood. I love this. She says, "For so long, I thought only of the river's end." She wanted to get enlightened, right? Sometimes it's talked about that way. In Theravada, we say entering the stream, entering the river. It's also sometimes described as crossing over. She wanted to get there. For so long, I thought only of the river's end. Then one morning, I set my paddle down. She stopped trying quite so hard. Then one morning, I set my paddle down to watch the sun rise over the eastern hills. What we need is right in front of us. We think we're trying to get over there. When we put that down and we are willing to be with what's right here, with this don't know mind. I set my paddle down to watch the sun rise over the eastern hills, only to find myself somehow floating gently upstream. Surprise. For so long, I thought only of the river's end. Then one morning, I set my paddle down to watch the sun rise over the eastern hills, only to find myself somehow floating gently upstream. I promise it was not what I expected. So I hope that you find some encouragement in the words of our ancestors from Dogen and Bodhidharma and Ben Okri and Tetsugikai and Deshan and Dhammadina and the unnamed tea lady who yanked Deshan's chain. We are in the heart of the retreat of the sesshin. And you have put in quite a bit of paddling, quite a bit of effort to get here. So really to encourage you as best you can to stay intimate, stay very close to your experience. Notice all of the views and opinions and ideas that you have and just say, oh, hello. And keep coming home to the immediacy of the body as a doorway, trusting that this Bodhi mind is already here. It's just the willingness to open ourselves to discover something that may come as a surprise. So before I close this morning, I want to say two things. One is that I really enjoyed sitting with everyone for the stretch of the day yesterday. Doesn't mean I enjoyed every single period, but I loved being in the field, the cauldron of the community. And I just want to say, because you may, well, I will be sitting as much as I can in the Zendo, but I will also not always be in the Zendo because I will be doing practice discussion throughout the day. So if I'm not there, that's what I'm up to. And the other thing that I want to say is that in a few moments when I get up and bow and we leave, those of you, especially who are new to practice, this is your first sesshin or first-ish, after the talk is over, I will come back in the hall, and any of you who would like, who have a question, are welcome to bring your question. And that includes those of you online as well. You can bring your questions. And you don't have to. You don't have to come back. If you prefer, you're welcome to go and do kinhin. But that invitation is there for a few moments from now. Yeah? So when we're done, you're welcome to leave and go to the bathroom if you like. And if you want, you can come back after. All right? Perfect, huh? Thank you very much.
May our intention equally extend to every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to rend them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.
So I thought we could start and see if there are any questions from anyone online. You've been following Dan through the last... Can we hear Tyler if Tyler speaks?
Yes.
Tyler, speak.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Great.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for taking questions. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I found myself during your talk just now crying most of the way through it. And I realized that I wanted to keep hearing you talk for the rest of the day. And what that brought up for me was realizing I was sort of remembering back to the last sitting of yesterday, which was really difficult for me. It was very squirmy and uncomfortable, and it was one of those sittings where I just wanted the bell to ring desperately. And hearing you talk today and feeling so much come up, I realized that I am wrestling with a deep sense of loneliness in my practice. And part of that might be because I'm at home, so I'm not in the
Right.
in the Zendo with everybody. And so there is, in a way, an isolation. But hearing you speak and feeling so connected to your words and moved by them and feeling so a part of something, I was really feeling such a deep heart connection with you and with everyone there. And I realized that was part of what I was, in a way, really missing yesterday. And I'm working on trying to find that sense of connection, even when I'm sitting with myself in my own home. And I sort of have the words that you mentioned yesterday, the sort of, oh, hello. who is feeling lonely? And I keep sort of asking myself that, and I'm finding that helpful to sit with. But there is a deep sense of loneliness that I feel like I am wrestling with, and it's bringing up a lot of pain. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your sincerity in your question. It is a very Zen way to do it, to say, who is feeling lonely? I think for me, when there is especially a strong emotion, and particularly if there's a strong emotion, same thing if there's a repeated thought. There's a repeating thought or a strong emotion, and I attend to it and it keeps being there, then I think it's useful to be intimate with that. For me, what I mean by intimate with it is to turn toward it, and in a way you invite it to speak. What's useful, I think, with working with strong emotion, especially difficult emotion, is that when we attend to feeling in the heart, we tend to pop back up into the mind and then have a story about it, and oh, this means this is who I am, this is the kind of person I am, or this is going to last forever, or why is nobody else feeling this way, or I... And that the invitation, as sort of echoed by Dogen's piece, is instead to drop down into the body and to explore what is loneliness as a visceral feeling. Because it's often the case that, in my experience, when there's a strong feeling and it stays, that there's something I haven't attended to yet. And I don't mean that literally it will say something, but it's kind of, there's something that I haven't heard, that I haven't fully received, and it will keep going until I listen, right? So it's a very tender process, and it is a process of kind of refining and tenderizing the quality of attention that you bring to your experience. Because if you turn toward your loneliness in this case, but I think it holds for almost any other emotion, and you say, what the hell are you doing here? I wish you would go away. It will say, see you later. It's not going to reveal much. But if you turn toward with this kind of these soft hands, and a genuine curiosity, willingness to be surprised, and you may have to wait a while. And it may not speak in English, right? It may not give you a sentence. There may just be a whiff of something. So that is that's a way of practicing intimacy with whatever is arising. And again, in my experience, when I attend to physical pain, repeated thought, strong emotion in that way, one of the things that often happens is it begins to shapeshift. The kind of frozenness of whatever it is that I've been exploring, that the mind does, right? The mind kind of takes an experience and freeze frames it and says, oh, that's loneliness. When we're intimate with something, we begin to actually feel into the shapes, the color, the aliveness of what is loneliness? What is it in the body? Is it always the same? Does it like that? It becomes less of an object that we are bouncing off of and more of a living exploration. Yeah. And that may mean, Tyler, that you get a whiff, are told that you want more Sangha. That may be what happens. Or you may recognize that, oh, when I feel lonely from other people, it's because I'm disconnected from myself. I don't know what you'll find, But that's for you to be willing to listen and be surprised as you attend in that way. Long answer. I hope it's helpful for others. Most of us are also, dealing with various mind, heart, body places that inevitably bubble up as we sit in the way that we are. Things that we have been too busy or too preoccupied to really attend to. We say, oh, hello, how are you? But they say it too. Oh, hello, here I am. Listen, please. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. Anyone else online? No. Anyone in the room? Please, say your name.
Maureen.
Maureen, okay. Oh, wait for the...
It's along the same lines, but I'm curious what you have to say about sort of the concreteness of pain.
Uh-huh. Could you say a little more? There's many kinds of pain.
I thought you were going to start talking.
No.
I feel like I'm I'm trying to negotiate with it, or sort of be open to it, but it just grasps my attention, so I can't let go of it.
Are you speaking of, so we were just talking emotional
Physical.
pain? Physical pain. Mm-hmm. So it's inevitable for most of us, unless we've been doing a lot of sitting, and even if we have, that when we sit this much, that there will be discomfort in the body and sometimes pain. In the context of the full moon ceremony last night and the taking of the precepts, the fundamental precept is called do no harm. So that's the litmus test in a way for you. If you feel like you are doing harm in some way, then you might change your posture. Mm-hmm. You could experiment some periods sitting in a chair. You can always, in any period of zazen, be in a rest position like this. As we know, any position you stay in for a long time will eventually be uncomfortable, even if you're in a really nice, comfy bed. But you don't want to do harm. And pain, physical pain, can be a very interesting teacher if you are not doing harm. And for me, the way I sat with enormous amount of pain when I first came to practice, I remember I came in and I saw all these people who were sitting, and I was on 3 zafus. That's how tight my hips were. I couldn't get my, And so I was kind of very precarious seat, and I was in a lot of pain. The benefit for me of pain, of sitting in pain, is that it taught me some things. There is pain, and then there's suffering. Sometimes we say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. In the body, there's physical pain, and the suffering can come from tightening around the pain. So just at a physical level, I was practicing myself with this yesterday in those long afternoon periods of Zazen, where I could feel pain and then I could feel places in my body that were just tightening. And I just invited those places to soften. And then I got a cramp, which I just did again. This happens sometimes. The other kind of suffering that we add are, the second and third and fourth and 29th arrows, which is all the judgment we have about ourselves for the fact that there's pain. So no extra arrows, or at least notice the difference between the pain itself and the extra arrows. Sometimes, if there's pain in a particular place, if you go right into the center of it, it will begin, as I was saying before, things start to shift and change. When we're locked into an idea about it, it's kind of frozen. When we go into the visceral experience, sometimes pain becomes heat, pulling, tingling, intensity. So we start to see it's more than one thing. Sometimes, and all of these are useful options if you're trying to get through pain in a particular period of Zazen, sometimes what's useful if there's pain right here is to really open the field wide. So here's the pain. I'm going to really feel my whole body, and you just feel this point of pain within something much bigger. And you'll have to experiment a little bit to see what's helpful. The main thing is not to judge yourself for it, yeah, but also not to, not to imagine that you have to bear it, yeah. And nobody's gonna die if you pull your legs up in a period of Zazen. Probably no one's even gonna see you, right? Maybe the person next to you. So we tend to carry these very intense kind of voices inside about what good and bad practice looks like and what we should and shouldn't do. So those can soften too. Yeah. Move, sit in a chair, focus in, open up, watch out for arrows. Summary. Yeah. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
I had a sort of some reflection.
This way?
Oh,
Yeah.
Closer?
Yeah.
So also a reflection on something that's going in a similar direction, but also touches a bit on the not knowing and the faith part that you were talking about. So I found myself yesterday, like morning, sitting and mainly still having like a lot of like busy mind on like the past work days, etc. So I felt very distracted from that in the beginning. So the afternoon, the mind became more quiet, but then at some point I felt myself being like kind of drowsy and tired, and then I was sort of like drifting off, and I felt sort of dissatisfied with that sort of practice, because I was like, well, you're not very present. You're just like kind of trying not to like drift away. And then like later, like after those like afternoon periods, I had a lot of like pain in the knees, and then I felt very present, but you feel like a lot of pain. So at that point, you're like, okay, now I'm sort of very present, but I'm like present in the pain. So I think like, and then at some point I sort of like started like thinking like how much like sort of normal present sitting where you do it, like you were just sort of like at some point you were distracted, then you were like drowsy, and now you're in pain. Like you had like at some point it's like you had very little like net sort of good sitting time at some. So that's what I was at some point.
And what would good sitting time look like? So I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm pointing to the mind that imagines that what's happening isn't good, and that there is some imaginary place called good sitting. what's true, it sounds like, is that what you were sitting with was unpleasant. That's part of the deal. Our experience, what I heard in you, is called being human. Really, that's how it is. And that's enough difficulty. We don't need to pile on top of that the idea that we should be some other way, or that this way isn't good enough, right? It's already hard. So how about when it's difficult, can we, when the mind is busy, can we just as graciously and patiently as possible, it's like one of my teachers says, like training a puppy, you just keep bringing it back to the body. It's just here, mind goes off, here, mind goes off. You don't have to hit the puppy. You don't have to yell at the puppy. It's just what the puppy does. And when the mind gets spacey, which it will, can you bring some curiosity, a kind of brightening of the mind? What does spaciness feel like, right? And when there's pain, as I was saying, can you bring any of the ways that I talked about working with, but mostly like, can you bring some kindness rather than, or compassion, rather than should. And you might not have even known that you had all those shoulds. This is what I meant when I said we bump up against all these ideas we didn't know we had about what practice is, what good sitting looks like, who we think we are, who we think we should be. When you find those, this is what I say, when I notice that voice that's like, in me, I say, who made you the boss? Right? Because it's true. Who decided that that voice gets to decide how I should be as a human being? The truth is that exactly what's happening is the experience that you get to work with. So we think when we come to practice, we have content of awareness and awareness. And we think as we sit, we're going to get better and better content. I've been sitting a long time, probably not. What can happen is that the awareness is always there. You don't have to make it happen. It's there, waiting, given, as Dogen would say. What begins to shift is the relationship between the awareness, what's noticing, what's paying attention, and the experience. From the mind that says good, bad, yes, no, I want this, I don't want that, to can I be with what's here now? And to ask, to inquire even, what's needed to be with this? And as you play with that, as you experiment with it, again, it doesn't matter what I say, you will find out for yourself, right? Mostly what you find out for yourself, all of us, is what it means to be a human being, which tends to be very different than our idea of what we think a human being should be. This is called intimacy. It's also refuge. We take ourselves out of all of our ideas and we just land here. It may not be pleasant. Probably if you sit all day today, it will not be pleasant the whole time. There may be moments, and if there are, please enjoy them. The question is, how do you meet it? With what mind do you meet the busy mind and the sleepy mind and the painful knees? That's what we're cultivating. Yeah. Thank you. Please, Kristen.
This may be the final one.
Last question.
Thank you. My name's Kristen. Last night, I think it was last night, you spoke of compassion being with suffering.
Yes.
And the question came to me, I wonder how that's different from empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And then today, when you spoke of grandmotherly love and soft hands, which I loved, it also made me think of what I've heard Roshi Joan Halifax talk about, strong back, soft front.
Mm.
And I guess my question is, are these all interchangeable?
Mm.
And if they aren't, what's the nuance between them?
Are all what interchangeable?
So compassion, empathy, grandmother love, soft front, strong back.
Well, I think if you scratch a dozen Dharma teachers, you will get a dozen different answers. So in that regard, they're not really different, but they're different expressions of the same thing. That's my guess. So if that's how Joan Roshi Halifax says it, that's a beautiful expression. Strong spine, soft front, grandmotherly hands. For me, those are very similar. They're all pointing to the same thing. And as we know, in some ways, those of us who sit in this seat, we just say the same stuff over and over. And we say it in different ways because sometimes it lands with certain words and sometimes it lands with other words, right? So whatever lands for you is great. I will have a little picky thing about the difference between empathy and compassion. Because for me, I think of it as sympathy, empathy, intimacy. Sympathy is, I'm up here and you're down there. I feel sorry for. Empathy is, I feel your pain, but I'm still over here feeling your pain. Intimacy is, I think, true compassion. It's when it's all one thing. It's like the guy who laid down next to Jiao. He didn't say, "Oh, I see that you're lying in the snowbank. Let me give you a hand." No, he went and laid down with him. So when I talk about being with, I'm talking about that quality of intimacy. So I'm being picky about it. For me, empathy still has a little separation in it. But in general, what you're asking, yes, they're all pointing to the same thing. Yeah? Well, I hope this was helpful. I am going to go do some practice discussions, and you are going to go sit. So please take the whatever was helpful from this with you, and if anything that I said was confusing or not so helpful, you can let it go. And let's see what happens as we keep sitting together. Thank you.